Hello, Jew and Lefty. My name is Mason, from Parts Unknown. I want to ask a question about the death penalty, which you spoke about several months ago. I have nothing, morally, against the death penalty. Of course, it is horrible if someone is put to death on false charges, but if they are guilty of a severe crime, death should be the punishment. Anyway, your reasons for being against the death penalty were fiscal. I never knew how much it cost to put someone through the whole process. So, here's my question. Why not just reform the death penalty? What is preventing the government from making it less expensive?
So the reason that was also kind of creepy, but thank you for your question.
Oh,
The reason
that
it's
was
so
like my second
expensive.
favorite one ever.
Thank you, Jew and Lefty. Like,
Jack America is still my all-time favorite.
yes, yeah,
Jack
definitely
America
the
by
favorite.
far my all-time favorite, and just the originality of however they did that. I'm whatever, but
It's definitely top three.
it is, yes. So a couple of months ago, I don't know which episode Mason is referring to, but yeah, we did talk about the financial why it is financially it's not financially conservative to go for the death penalty.
That's true. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, we talked about that. He said that he doesn't have a moral issue with the death penalty. I know I do. I'm 99% certain Spike has moral issues with the death penalty as well. Um,
Yes.
things that I used to be pro death penalty. I was not
So was I.
always.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was not always against the death penalty. And what initially switched my mind was the financial reasons. If it costs more money to kill him than keep him alive, then why would we spend the extra money? Just keep him in jail, no hope for parole. That's how I initially got over. And then I started learning that 1 in 8 people are on death row because are falsely accused on death row. Then you find out that I believe I don't have these stats in front of me right now, but I think it's 33% of all the people on death row are mentally incapable to stand trial. And many of them have to be drugged in order to get to a point of cognizance that they are even legally allowed to be killed. They have to be drugged. 33% have to be put on medication to be cognizant of the fact of what is happening to them. These are not people that we should be killing. No, and I do have a moral issue with it. When you have 1 in 8 on death row who have been falsely accused, they should not be there. They should absolutely not be there. So, are there ways for the government to make it more financially feasible? Yes, but in doing so, what you would have to do is get rid of much of the appeals process, which mean
Yep.
that number 1 in 8 would go up. You would have more than 33% who would need to be medicated to be cognizant enough to be murdered by the state. So yes, there are ways to do it, but in all of those ways, it makes me more morally against the idea of the
Right.
death penalty.
Exactly. Pretty much everything Matt just said. The one redeeming thing, if you want to call it that, about our current death penalty system is that when you are found guilty and sentenced to death, you have, in theory anyway, years or even decades to try to get it appealed and prove your innocence. That's what makes it so expensive compared to just putting them in jail. Because instead of just putting them in jail for the rest of their life, they're put in a death row where they can't have visitors, and where they're in basically isolation for the rest of their lives, and they have to go through these very expensive appeal processes and everything else, and that makes it much more expensive than just putting them in jail. The flip side of that is, like Matt said, if you get rid of that, yeah, you make it less expensive, but now the rate of people who were wrongfully accused who aren't able to end up having it overturned goes up exponentially, which makes it even that much more objectionable. the reason that libertarians oppose the death penalty is because that we know that government, when given power to do something, often uses it in the most harmful and inequitable and abusive ways. And when you give the government the power to decide whether or not someone should be alive, like any true predator, they will use it against the easiest prey, the people who are not able to fight back, the people who are not able to defend themselves, the people who are not able to be able to mount a real defense and who just kind of go along with it. We've heard stories of people who were coerced into confessing to doing something, were promised a plea deal, even though they initially said they didn't do it. They were promised a plea deal, and then after they confessed, they were sentenced to the death penalty. There was a killing about this time last year, actually, of a man named Nathaniel Woods in was it Mississippi, or I'm trying to remember now, Arkansas, Mississippi, one of those states where.
Yeah.
Where he was accused of killing 3 police officers, even though it was never disputed that he didn't actually do it. They never claimed that he killed them. He was there when they were killed by his friend and roommate. They just claimed that he was in on it. Even though his friend and roommate who actually killed them and who was already on death row wanted to testify with nothing in it for him, wanted to testify that that Nathan had nothing to do with it. And the courts didn't allow that testimony. The only evidence they had that he was in on it was the fact that he had yelled at those cops or sworn at those cops earlier in the day. And they killed him. It was about, I think, 15 years later, last year, they killed him. It was essentially a long, drawn-out lynching process where they killed a man because they could. So there is no way to reform the death penalty other than to either make it so much more prohibitively expensive that it doesn't make sense, or to go the other way and make it less expensive, but make it exponentially more likely to kill an innocent person. So the best way to do it is just not do it.
Yeah, there was that case. We talked about it last year at some. I don't remember all the details. I remember that the state, and I think it was Arkansas or Mississippi, somewhere, or maybe it was one of the federal cases where they executed somebody, but the guy who was executed never pulled the trigger. He was there, but he never pulled the trigger. He didn't shoot anybody. He didn't kill anybody. And the only witness they had against him was the guy who pulled the trigger. And he said, "Oh yeah, no, he masterminded the entire thing." And,
yeah, exactly.
And things like this shouldn't happen. And the state should not be murdering people because of these things, because the state will then if they want the death penalty on the table, they will find somebody to testify against you. They will do it. They will absolutely do it.
Yeah. Yeah. If they decide they want to kill you, you're dead.
Right.
Yeah. If they are truly a threat, if someone is found guilty of murdering dozens of people, think of a Dylan Roof, think of the kid in what was his name that killed all in Florida in Lakeland.
Not Lakeland.
Anyway, not Lakeland.
Down in Parkland.
Parkland, that's what.
Lakeland is where the 2021 Florida Libertarian, where the Libertarian Party of Florida's convention is.
Yes, that. So Parkland, where Cruz did his massacre, put him in jail for the rest of their lives, no hope of parole. And if in some weird way, and it probably wouldn't be in those cases, but someone is put away for an egregious crime, a multiple rape and homicide, and then it turns out 20 years later they didn't do it, and there's proof they didn't do it, and they were railroaded, then yeah, you stole 20 years, or the state stole 20 years from them, but they can go free. They can get some kind of settlement. They can try to reclaim what's left of their life. If you kill them, there's no undoing killing. And right. There is just, our vice president put 2 innocent men away on death row. There is no accountability for it. It was said multiple times. Even Mike Pence brought it up, and it wasn't enough for people to go, wow, maybe we shouldn't vote for this person. As long as there's that lack of accountability and that corruption, we shouldn't even be talking about keeping the death penalty. And I can't think of a scenario in which we ever should, but certainly not under the one that we have now. If you need one reason, that should be enough. It's Nathaniel Woods or any of these other cases that we've heard of. So that's our thoughts on that.